Good afternoon, dear sir and madam. My name is NATALIIA PAVLIKHA, and here with me is my colleague MAKSYM VOICHUK. We presented our research results on the sustainable urban city concept. We are representatives of Scientific School Economics of Sustainable Development. Our research interests philosophy of sustainable development and modern economic theories, economics growth and development, inclusive economy, analysis and modeling of sustainable development processes, investment support of sustainable development, development and regulation of the labor market, sustainable development of rural areas, sustainable development of the city, economics of land use, startup economy, smart economy, circular economy. All research is performed by us in the Training Research Production Laboratory of Projects and Initiatives. Recently, we have come across more and more phrases such as sustainable development. This is a natural result of globalization and digitalization of the world, and we, with some reservations, do not stay away from these processes. What does this concept include, and how are the Sustainable Development Goals implemented in the countries of the world? The concept of sustainable development was formed when the world experienced a powerful energy crisis and the oil overproduction. The European Round Table of Industrialists took place, and European integration process intensified. The Chernobyl tragedy occurred, and in fact the theory of modernization finally collapsed. And most importantly, a new series of global problems, environmental, is coming to the international forefront. If we recall the typical and development, the man moved from the discovery of truth to its production. Sustainable development is about that. However, this concept is essentially human-centric in nature and context. Sustainable development is a general concept that addresses the need to strike a balance between meeting the modern needs of humanity and protecting the interests of future generations, including their need for a safe environment.
As you know, on the United Nations level in 2015 was published a document entitled Transforming Our World, the Agenda for Sustainable Development until 2030. It replaced previous Millennium Development Goals program, which ran from 2000 until 2015. The list of goals and specific steps for their implementation was expanded from 8 and 21 to 17 and 169 respectively. The record for the achievements Sustainable Development Goals Index was developed, which is in an aggregate state that demonstrates the movement of a country, political community to achieve the goals of sustainable development. The formation and development of the concept of sustainable development of mankind as a paradigm actually took place in the middle of 20th century at the beginning of 21st century. However, it should be considered that specific scientific foundations of the theory of sustainable development were laid much earlier, in particular by Volodymyr Vernadsky in works on the development of biosphere, in which the scientists considered human activity on a planetary scale and justified the need to change its existence. The merit of scientist is that he was the first to introduce into the process of studying the relationship system man-nature, at the center of which humanity, with a specific set of urgent material, practical needs and interests of the survival of current and future generation a new dimension, humanity as single whole, and moved social analysis to the global plane. The process of forming and consolidation of the concept of sustainable development is proposed to be considered in the context of several stages. Based on multiplicity of approaches to periodization, we consider it necessary to separate three key periods of formation of the concept for sustainable development, based on the fact that the ideas of sustainable development were transferred from the global level to local one. Today there are a number of definitions of sustainable development formulated by scientists in various fields of research. In particular, the most common definition of sustainable development, so-called Brundtland definition, is proposed in the report Our Common Future. Sustainable development is such a kind of development that meets the needs of today without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Depending on the level of socio-economic systems, we propose to consider sustainable development in global, national, regional and local boundaries, namely determine global level of sustainable development, with the essence is the uniform of social economic development of the world community, preservation and reproduction of the environment, balanced development of all processes in the biosphere. Regulation of this process is carried out by international organizations and interstate program documents. The national level of sustainable development includes single countries. Regional level sustainable development is characterized by a balance between social, economic, environment subsystem of region as a holistic system, which is managed at the level of state and regional authorities. And local level sustainable development covers cities, rural areas, districts, which leads to the development of a mechanism for sustainable development governance based on regional and local strategies with the participation of local governments and communities.
More than half of the world's population lives in urban areas. Sustainable development cannot be achieved without a significant transformation in the way we build and manage cities. Today, more than half of the world's population lives in cities, while 50 years ago this figure was about 30%. Rapid urbanization poses new challenges to humanity, as there are problems related to environmental pollution, the quality of habitats and the health care system. Urban areas account for 76% of man-made greenhouse gas emissions, making them major climate factors. At the same time, cities are among the areas most vulnerable to climate change, which poses risks to infrastructure, ecosystems, housing services, and the livelihoods and health of urban communities. As sources of strong economic growth, cities have the greatest potential for adapting and mitigation, making them central actors in addressing climate change. In fact, the idea of permanent cities has already been expressed by Antonio de Saint-Exupéry through The Little Prince. Wake up in the morning, clean up your planet. Intuitive eco-settlements and happy communes reach it long before they announce the concept of sustainable development. The conceptual framework for sustainable urban development is defined by the United Nations Human Centers Program, which sends out the targets for sustainable urban development, namely the provision of balanced urban development in terms of their social, economical, and environmental aspects. Cities play a key role as drivers of regional economic development are the center of most jobs, firms and infrastructure, the center of innovation, entrepreneurship and economical growth.
The special state of environmental affairs in Singapore. This urban country is pretty famous for perfect cleanliness, but not only because of inhabitants who are prone to cleanliness and order. Just the authorities have imposed disparately served fines, and the chance of getting them are quite high. For example, for feeding peanuts or spit on the street, you will have to pay 1,000 of Singapore's dollars from your wallet. Large cities are actively involved in this process. For example, Paris, which is considered one of the European leaders on the path to environmental friendliness, advocates carbon neutrality, reduction of carbon dioxide emissions to zero. From 2024, the entrance to French capital will be restricted to diesel cars. In addition, the authorities have introduced rules that require developers to design on the roofs of commercial buildings greenery or solar panels. In general, cities that implement the concept of sustainable development prefer a closed-loop economy, mainly models of waste-free production with complex processing of raw materials. Active population growth is causing the expansion of urban areas. But if the process is chaotic without strategic planning, it becomes a prerequisite for the uneven distribution of traffic, the disproportionate ratio of residential and non-residential real estate, and other problems. Ukraine's development strategy is based on the country committees at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg in 2002 to achieve the Millennium Development Goals, as well as on the policy of integration into European Union. One of the most important prerequisites and at the same time a tool for its observation is the integration of the principles of social partnership into the governance process and the values of sustainable development to economic, social and environmental policies. Ukraine development agenda is largely urban-oriented, with more than 60% of Ukrainian populations are cities inhabitants. In addition, cities are the basic links in both the administrative, territorial and financial budgetary system of Ukraine. Since the effectiveness of baseline determines the effectiveness of a system as a whole, the problems of economic growth, social stability and welfare of population are largely determined by the state of this issue in cities, due to the concentration of the majority of population in these territories. Taking into account all about difficulties, the Municipal Governance and Sustainable Development Program of United Nations Development Program in Ukraine was initiated in April 2004 to develop a common and transparent mechanism for localizing and the principle of sustainable development. Using the social mobilization approach, the program promotes the creation of appropriate organization of local communities, educational institutions, small businesses and civic society organizations. These organizations are based in selected cities on the principles of self-help and effective governance.
The main restraining factors for the successful solution of municipal problems and ensuring sustainable development are: first, the imperfect organizational structure of cities councils and their executive bodies, which does not meet today's requirements. Secondly, the lack of knowledge, skills and experience in solving current problems, shortage of qualified specialists of the world. Third, the mismatch of available resources, including financial, to the needs and objectives of municipalities. Fourth, and the most importantly, the positivity of the population, its inability to solve their own problems, the lack of the body's completive communities. In view of this, the objective questions arises: how can the city authorities bring the city out of the crisis and ensure its sustainable development in the absence of the necessary reforms? It should be noted that mechanisms for solving municipal problems have long been developed and successfully implemented in countries around the world. Therefore, an important area of bringing the cities of Ukraine out of the socio-economic and environmental crisis and ensuring sustainable municipal development is the adoption of world best practices and its adaptations to local characteristics. Ukraine has joined 2019 UN Sustainable Development Programme. Among the national goals set by 2030 of the provisions of veritable preservation of culture and natural heritage, reduction of pollution, formation and the use of municipal strategies. The implementation of the principles of sustainable development in Ukraine is just beginning.
In the context of United Nations Sustainable Development Programme until 2030, such a sustainable development strategy has appeared in the cities of Alexandria in Kirovohrad region. The city is ahead not only for other settlements in Ukraine, but also for the central government, which only in 2017 approved the National Report Sustainable Development Goals Ukraine. The strategy was developed by a specialist of Academy of Public-Private Partnership with the active participation of Strategic Committee for City Development and directly the local administration of Alexandria. The aim of the strategy is to create a modern European city, attractive for living and doing business based on efficient use of available resources, existing competitive advantages of the city, preservation of the environment and human capital development, as well as the introduction of innovations and best practices of sustainable development governance. In this strategy, a modern European city that is attractive for living and doing business, it's not a declarative and commonly used concept. The document clearly defines the indicators that will characterize the construction of such city and calculate the indicators to be achieved by it up to 2030. In these indicators that will be used to assess the achievement of the set goals and hence such success of the implementation of the strategy by both the city administration and society. This is fully in line with the approaches to the United Nations Global Sustainable Development Strategy, namely clarity in defining strategic development objectives, their measurability, as well as access to information and understanding of the strategy by society, local community and international community. All indicators defined in the strategy are clearly correlated with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and the indicators to be achieved in its implementation are measured in accordance with international and national standards in this area. To determine the starting position of the city on the key indicators of sustainable development goals and calculate the indicators that can be achieved by the city in case of system and technological activities in the implementation of the strategy in 2020 up to 2030, the developers of this document were rated based on statistical, social, economic information and assessment based on the results of an expert survey of representatives of public authorities, business and civic society, up to 65 people. A comprehensive analysis of the results of these two assessments made it possible to identify three strategic priorities for sustainable development of the city in the context of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals: decent work for all, comfortable living conditions, and rational management. Each of these strategic priorities contains certain areas of the development in accordance with SDGs. For each of these priorities, the target to be achieved in 2020 and 2030 according to SDGs. Indicators have been defined, including those according to which the success of the strategy will be assessed by exactly society. According to international experience, any development strategy cannot be implemented in practice if it's not based on the creation or modernization of modern infrastructure, economical, social, and natural. In view of this, sustainable development strategy of the city contains through analysis of the state and problems of urban infrastructure and investment projects, the implementation of which is currently being considered by both local authorities and local businesses. The investment projects proposed by city are considered in view of their potential impact on achieving the goals of the strategy. Among them are defined those that should be focused on in the first place.
The Sustainable Development Strategy of the city provides mechanisms that will allow achieving the planned goals and defines an action plan for its attention. The priority mission should be creating of a strategic development center in the city responsible for the preparation and implementation of local infrastructure plans, monitoring the implementation of these plans and strategy, informing the city residents about the issue related to their implementation. Development of the city infrastructure plan aimed at achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. First, the medium term 2070-2020, and then in the long term 2021-2030. This center should become a center of competence of the strategic development of the city in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, and mechanism of implementing this task, including public-private partnership. Its representatives must be trained both in Ukraine and abroad and master modern approaches to solving complex problems of implementing the strategy and involve the community in its implementation. A decision was also made on the need to promptly begin the formation of the city infrastructure plan. The Sustainable Development Strategy of Alexandria is innovative. It's the first example of the adaptation of national strategic documents to the UN Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 in Ukraine. In fact, on the example of the city of Alexandria, it is planned to work out a methodology of building sustainable and smart cities in the current conditions in Ukraine, move from strategic declaration to strategies for practical action and understandable results to society. Orienting the Alexandria Sustainable Development Strategy to the UN Sustainable Development Goals will, among other things, allow us all to work in a single, coordinated system with the international community and be understood by our partners and colleagues around the world who are working hard to achieve the 2030 30 Sustainable Development Goals focused on the needs of man, the planet, and prosperity. Green initiatives. Ukraine is a party to the Paris Agreement, the main goal of which is to achieve carbon neutrality. A project to implement restrictions on greenhouse gas emissions by industrial enterprises is currently under development. The received funds are planned to be invested in the development of enterprises with high eco standards. According to various estimates, the implementation of the initiative will begin no earlier than 2026. Today, there are positive changes on the way to environmental friendliness at the municipal level. Thus, 5 Ukrainian cities became participants in the 8BDC Green Cities Eco Program aimed at their sustainable development. For example, an ecological waste processing plant will be built in Lviv, public transport will be upgraded in Kyiv, and a city landfill will be rehabilitated in Khmelnytsky. Energy-efficient buildings. Every year, the number of Ukrainian projects awarded international certificates of eco-building is gradually growing. Today, at the stage of passing, about 10 more commercial and residential real estate. It is worth noting that green buildings are not only environmentally friendly, as they can save up to 50% of energy resources, but also create healthy environment for residents of tents. At the state level, the new building codes have been adopted, according to which in Ukraine all high-rise buildings, residential and public, must meet the energy efficiency class lower B, and residential buildings not lower than C.
In Kyiv Smart City program is partly responsible for the development of smart infrastructure. Today, most of the implemented projects are social and educational initiatives, addressing issues such as optimizing the transport system, monitoring and managing energy consumption, and, for example, introducing face-to-face technologies requires more time, expertise, and funding. However, point smart programs are gradually being introduced. Thus, a pilot project of photo-fixing parking violence was launched in the center of Kyiv. Now, Ukrainian cities are at the beginning of the path sustainable development. The key task should be to develop a national unified strategy with the delegation of specific tasks to the field. Among the priority goals are the solution of transport infrastructure issues, the course of energy efficiency, and the consistent implementation of the principles of a smart city.
The global COVID-19 pandemic has significantly accelerated digitalization processes, creating not only new needs and opportunities, but also new dependencies and problems. Along with the digitalization, another current global trend is urbanization. Cities appear as a dominant form or organization, becoming much more productive than the whole country. However, the rapid growth of cities creates new challenges that are trying to overcome the way of transitions to smart urbanization, where the introduction of digital technologies becomes necessary. Urbanization and digitalization are developing the concept of a smart city, which more and more cities are striving to adapt, developing new initiatives and strategies for the development of smart cities. If you search on Google how to make your city smart, you will hardly find the answer to this question. There is no perfect and definite concept. Each city has its own characteristics, challenges, and problems, for the solution of which different tools are developed and implemented accordingly. To live in a smart city is to live without congestions, without fear of security, without quiz when paying for services, to live with the awareness of where the money from the local budget goes. The concept of the development of smart cities is just beginning to materialize in Ukraine. Also in developed countries, these things have long been a reality.
Onuka song This Is My City perfectly describes modern urbanization not only in Ukraine but all over the world. Then modern city knows everything about me, about many contradictions. The city never falls asleep, waits for me, recognizes me from all faces.
Це моє місто, лине. Це моє місто, де безліч протиріч. Це моє місто, що лиш за хвилини народжує ранок, лине одразу в ніч.
Smart city concept, vision. Before embarking on any important smart city initiative, you need to determine what smart city really means for your exactly city and how to measure progress towards your goals. A simple statement like we want to be more connected is not enough. The vision of building a successful smart city should be ambitious but specific, with clear criteria for project success and deadlines. Ecosystem. Public sector stakeholders play an important role in transforming cities into smart cities. However, trying to implement the principles of smart city while leaving the traditional power verticals is a recipe for wasting one's efforts. In the smart city of the future, problems are solved collectively by those who are able to deal with them. Together they develop non-standard solutions beyond traditional approaches. This requires a partners ecosystem consisting of the government, long-term enterprises, young companies, so-called startups, educational institutions and non-profit organizations like NGOs. Management. Because there is often a need for combined efforts of this diverse stakeholder ecosystem, a well-defined strategy is also needed to manage smart cities. City leaders, local governments, transport districts, companies and non-profit organizations, as well as depending on the funding model, state or local executive bodies, all of them can participate in developing of a vision for smart city and implementing this project. All of these stakeholders should be able to clearly state their responsibilities, ensure that the necessary information is available to the relevant decision makers, and empower people to make decisions that will contribute to the overall outcome. Establishing responsibility and developing mechanism for timely decision making is priority. Technological basis. The technologies used to transform an ordinary city into smart city will be different in each case according to unique needs of particular city. However, all smart cities need to integrate a technology for their efforts that provides system architecture, data management, interoperability, and cybersecurity. Financing. The latest approaches to municipal governance also require new approaches for financing. Traditional sources of funding, including tax revenues and local loan bonds, can be complemented by public and private funding from other sources such as joint venture foundations and contractors. In addition, sources of funding such as public funding, so-called crowdfunding, or green funding should be explored.
Classification of smart cities are following: by level of economic growth and status of the city, developed economy and heritage city. In such cities, the technology requires the deployment and sometimes dismantling of existing physical infrastructure, such as roads and buildings. Low population growth is common and in many cases can generate zero income. Developing economy in heritage city. Most physical infrastructure facilities have been established, but the population is growing rapidly. Private funds can be the basis of improving existing infrastructure and using it more efficiently. Developing economy and new city. It is characterized by high economic growth and high population growth. The existing physical infrastructures does not need to be dismantled. Develop economy and new city. Most cities in this category are satellite cities around existing city. They compete with neighboring cities for economic growth. According to the stage of urban development, new cities are large-scale smart city projects that are built from scratch and aim to solve urban problems with state-of-the-art solutions, as well as create an innovative industry ecosystem for smart cities. Existing cities need new approaches as the existing physical infrastructure can hinder the development of urban smart facilities and solutions. Shrinking cities are less developed and most afford expensive advanced technologies. The question areas in identifying their vulnerabilities and tools to prevent them. By type of smart urban innovations, technologies smart city are based on the value of technology in the development of new practices and services. For example, applications that encourage of use of public transport. Organization smart city focus on positive changes in the daily activities of local governments, their efficiency and productivity. Joint smart cities focus on cooperation between different subjects of the city authorities, free economic zones, business community. An open and interactive management process is prerequisite. Experimental smart cities focus on a human-oriented approach. Their goal is to achieve holistic sustainability through a combination of the previous three types of smart cities. By purpose, smart cities are equipped with development infrastructure and focused on effective management. Investment is directed to the purpose of interpreting ICT into physical infrastructure. Platform-oriented smart city focused on connecting and integrating information systems that previously functioned independently of each other. Also, for the purpose offered to allocate the following types of smart cities. First, aimed at implementing cost-effective solutions, introduction of individual solutions to urban development problems, use of living laboratories, and exchange of solutions through networks. Second, aimed at creating and supporting innovative ecosystem for industries. The main method of deregulation and creation of digital infrastructure based on open data platform for industries. By clusters based in 81 urban components and 28 areas, the typically are formed into 6 key components: smart economy, smart environment, smart management, smart lifestyle, smart mobility, and smart people.
The development and implementation of the concept of smart city remains one of the main directions of development of cities in developed countries in Europe, Asia, and United States. Each country, as well as various international organizations and global companies working in the field of digital technology, lay in the term of smart city different contexts, depending on issues that they are willing to solve. In most cases, smart city initiatives address the use of digital technologies, making urban services more efficient and communities more competitive. And where you can spy for such experience. The European interpretation of the smart city is based on developments of the Vienna University of Technology, which are the basis of the study European Smart Cities, which determines the compliance of European cities with the criteria of responsibility. The study it defines 6 main components of smart city, each of which contains a number of factors. These components of the Vienna methodology are smart economy, smart management, smart people, smart mobility, smart environment, and smart life. A smart economy is defined by areas such as innovation, entrepreneurship, brands, productivity, labor market flexibility, and participation in international processes. Smart government involves citizens in decision-making process on problematic aspects of the urban development through surveys, as well as enhancing the business-government-society relationship. Smart people are perhaps the most important component of smart city because the level of other elements of smart city is based on intellectual potential, qualification, education of the population, and their desire to participate in local problems. Responsible mobility includes such factors as availability of safe transport, international and domestic accessibility of the city, the availability of information and communication infrastructure. A smart environment means taking effective environmental measures and taking care of national resources. Smart living includes the availability of cultural facilities, the proper level of health and safety, accessibility of educational institutions, and attractiveness of the city for tourists. Thus, it can be stated that the modern interpretation of smart city is closely related to the concept of sustainable development, as the factors that form each of the components of smart city provide a balanced combination of economic, social, and environmental factors, as well as life not only for the present but also for future generations. That is, the definition of the concept of smart city must be deeply linked to the concept of sustainable development and take into account its basic principles. Denmark. The Ministry of Transport, Construction and Housing and the Danish Business Authority views the smart city as an evolving concept. In the early stages, the concept addresses narrow issues, environmental, energy and infrastructure, in terms of how ECTS can improve the functioning of the city. Today, the concept has expanded to promote local business and innovation, engage citizens in local infrastructure, improve healthcare, and provide social services, where the use of data and digital platforms help to implement smart solutions.
Latvia. The Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development defines smart city as implementing a strategic package of measures to address the most pressing challenges and increase the city competitiveness, providing citizens and entrepreneurs with measures that, first, do not require significant maintenance in the future. Second, promote the provision of more efficient public services, electronic services, use the single window principle. Third, improve the general welfare of society, security and public order. Fourth, allow timely anticipation and prevention of potential challenges, flood hazards, electricity shortages, heat losses, water leaks. Fifth, do not adversely affect, reduce, eliminate adverse effects on the environment. Sixth, are based on smart development planning that responds flexibly to the challenges and opportunities of development in the region. Seventh, identifies existing and potential competitive sectors and promotes their development, as well as ensure cooperation between various stakeholders, government, business, academics, NGOs, citizens.
According to European Union, the smart city is a place where traditional networks and services become more efficient through the use of digital technologies and ECT, and aimed at the benefit of its residents and business community. This demonstrates the desire for sustainability through smart public transport networks, modernized water supply and waste disposal facilities, as well as more efficient lighting and heating of buildings, more interactive and responsive city administration, safer public places, and meeting the need of an aging population. United Nations. The smart city approach uses the opportunities of digitalization, the use of clean energy, and the introduction of smart technologies, including transport, giving residents the opportunity to make more environmentally friendly choices and stimulate sustainable economic activity, as well as improve service delivery.
About innovation in the city, smart or not smart. In general, different interpretations of the smart city reflect its various aspects, but are based on a similar vision: areas with a high standard of living, favorable environmental environment, and high rates of economic development. More smart city definitions cover the use of digital technologies, More smart city definitions cover the use of digital technologies to improve service efficiency, the integration of ICT and IT sensory solutions to manage the city assets and processes. The most common in smart cities is the use of digital technologies such as building information modeling, CCD, 5G, 4G, Internet of Things, Big Data, Cloud Service, RE, to address demographic, economic, environmental, and social problems. In general, a smart city can be interpreted as a city where the management system is aimed at improving the quality of life by digitization, vision freeze of cities' life. The implementation of smart city technologies often requires a stable and cost-effective broadband network, an efficient ecosystem for managing equipment over the internet, and the potential to use the large amounts of data generated. This approach is to combine different city data streams under one roof into an operations center. Such centers can act as command posts to help overcome administrative divisions. Another way to ensure integrated development is to co-locate the various components of the infrastructure. It is important for a smart city to have a digital infrastructure that collects, processes large amounts of data, create an efficient and sustainable environment. The integrated system combines existing sensors and drives that transmit information in real time, and powerful computing system consists analytic programs with advanced database functionality. The combination of different sources of disparate data allows the city development a real understanding of social issues such as sustainability, mobility, health, and security. The ability to obtain data from a wide range of sensors in public space, in transport system, in energy networks, provides a real-time understanding of what are the transport and energy flows, the level of population, and human behavior. Using the concept of a smart city opens us many possibilities. In development countries, due to the rapid urbanization of cities, there is an urgent need to create an appropriate level of urban infrastructure. Satisfying requests for smart infrastructure development open up the possibility of technological progress for cities. Cities such as Barcelona, London, Dubai, and Singapore have access to advanced technologies and are faster to implement than in North America and Western Europe, and already occupy among the world cities in the development of digital technologies.
Another smart city, Barcelona, uses EOT sensors to monitor and control traffic. Sensors can also monitor noise level and air quality. Digital chips connected to garbage cans indicate their fullness. Mini sensors in parking lots simplify the search for free space. The lanterns equipped with system capable of measuring noise, traffic, pollution, crowds are kind of telecommunication towers with their own IP addresses, which provide real-time information to the city security center. Barcelona was one of the first cities in EU to develop and implement smart strategy, which was approved in 2014. The city has made significant progress in modernizing the urban environment and has rapidly won the title of one of the smartest cities in the world. The goal of the strategy, Barcelona Smart City Strategy, was to use smart technologies to promote economic development and improve the well-being of citizens. Change the city organizations through Internet of Everything and Internet of Things. The strategy covered three areas: international position, international cooperation, and smart local programs. Among the guiding principles of Barcelona's urban plan are restraining the city growth with a focus on redevelopment rather than the construction of new facilities, use of land for secondary development, restoration of architectural objects, etc. Barcelona saved about 42 billion a year from water management technologies, and parking management system brings the city additional $36 million. In addition, the introduction of Internet of Things technologies in the city has created 47,000 new jobs. Vienna has one of the most detailed strategies characterized by the presence of goals and deadlines for their achievement. It defines short and long-term goals until 2030 and 2050. In particular, the city aims to increase the share of high-tech export to 80% by 2050. Among the smart services in the city is an open data portal, the application MAKSYM, which allows residents to report crisis situation to the relevant services in 30 seconds. The Smart City Vienna initiative was announced by the local authorities in March 2011, and after revision with the participation of civil society, research institutions and the non-governmental sector, was adopted in 2014. The main goal of the strategy is to achieve a high level of quality of life combined with conservation of resources through innovations by 2050. The strategy focuses on digital education, social integration, active involvement of women in planning, decision-making and implementation, and smart healthcare system, introduction of an electronic medical card, data protection, introduction of a medical mobile application. Stockholm is another European city that is actively developing smart infrastructure. Despite the fact that the strategy for building a smart city is until 2040, Vision 2040 or Stockholm for Everyone was approved in 2015, smart technologies began to be implemented much more earlier. According to the strategy, the city aims to become climatically and financially sustainable, environmentally smart and cohesive. A specific place in the strategy is occupied by digital inclusion, so-called Stockholm Digital Care, digitalization of educational process, creation of educational online platforms, smart environmental solutions, installation of big belly solar-powered garbage cans, automatically packing garbage and signaling occupancy, smart living, etc. Stockholm is a member of EU's Grow Smarter project, which brings together cities to develop and disseminate smart city solutions in energy, infrastructure and transport sectors. The progress of the introduction of smart technologies in particular is reflected in the high-ranking position. Such, according to the Smart City Index 2020, Stockholm ranked 16th among 109 cities.
All the world's innovative cities in the coronavirus crisis are resilient and inclusive. We look at the technological achievements of this city with slight envy and admiration. Smart cities are not an isolated phenomenon, but an integral part of the ubiquitization to the digital economy. In the future, most people will live in smart cities. The need for them is due to changing demographics, mass demand for utilities, increasing the scale and complexity of urban infrastructure, as well as increasing mobility and the rapid spread of ICT. However, smart city may be on the top of peak of inflated expectations and be frustrated. We can assume that the literature on smart cities look quite utopian. When thinking about the future of smart cities, it is important to know what, while social control and digital surveillance can help address a number of issues, they can also threaten personal freedom and violate citizen rights. At a difficult time for the world, it is important to demonstrate greater focus and mobilize action to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic, halt the economic downturn and ensure recovery, curb climate change and build a more open society in terms of achieving the goals of sustainable development. Not the least role can be played by digital technologies, which are driving forces of radical change in various spheres of life. They have become an important element of infrastructure development in various countries around the world. We are unfortunately not yet among the leaders of innovative countries and cities of the world. The innovative and technology component is an integral part of the smart city. Thanks to them, it is possible to improve the quality of services, reduce resources consumed, streamline urban process, improve communication with residents. Thanks to smart technologies that can be used in all areas of city management, energy, e-government, public life, transport, health, education, life in the city can be made much comfortable, inclusive and sensible. Let's analyze what factors affect innovating in the city. Institutions, regulatory and political environment, human capital and science, education, R&D, infrastructure, information and communication technologies, social and marketing infrastructure, ecological sustainability, level of market development, loans, investments, competition, level of business development, innovative connections, degree of knowledge exported by businesses, availability of specialists, technologies and knowledge, creation, influence, distribution, creativity, smart ideas, creative products, online creativity, intelligible assets. Very well, just walk another 3 miles and look at a person who lives without a toilet and running water. The world is not flat, and the PC in the hierarchy of human needs is not even the most 5 steps. Technology is all just a tool. Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft. And what about smart affairs in Ukraine? Taking into account the world experience in recent years, the implementation of both complete concepts of smart city and some tools in some cities of Ukraine has begun. Kyiv, Ivano-Frankivsk, Lviv, Zaporizhia, Drohobych. The concept of the smart city, which began to the activity implemented in the world in the early 2000s, the concept of the smart city, which began to be actively implemented in the world in the early 2000s, has become relevant in Ukraine over the past 5 years. Local authorities in various cities of Ukraine are showing an increased interest in smart infrastructure development projects, which results in the introduction of digital technologies and increasing the level of industrialization of the urban environment. In Ukrainian cities, face recognition technology is quite common, thanks to which it is possible to make contactless payments in retail chains as well as travel on public transport. A smart lighting system is being introduced, which responds to traffic and also accumulates information on the state of the environment, temperature, air quality, noise level. Almost all cities already have smart water and gas meters, and the use of smart garbage containers, which signal their fullness, is becoming increasingly important. Unfortunately, the concept of smart city development in Ukraine has not yet received the necessary support at the national level. Its elements are being implemented by individual cities. The results are obvious only in limited areas and are point.
Own smart projects are developed by teams of specialists in Kharkiv, Lviv, Dnipro, Vinnytsia, Poltava, Drohobych, Kyiv, Mukachevo and other Ukrainian cities. Among the main areas and directions of digital transformation in these cities are democracy and urban governance, education, medicine, ecology, urban mobility and public safety. One of the leaders in the implementation of electronic administrative services is Dnipro. Such services have been introduced that allow to control the city budget and monitor the work of Center of Administrative Services. There are mobile applications e-Contact and My Police, which allow you to quickly connect with services in crisis situation. Among the city smart solutions are smart stops, whereas recharges for mobile phones, Wi-Fi and information board with the time of arrival of public transport, a single electronic ticket that operates in the subway and trams, and a system of smart traffic lights. During the Kyiv Smart City Forum 2020, which took place in October last year, the city was recognized as the best smart safe city with a population more than 100,000 people. It's worth nothing that the city has a program Safe City approved in January 2021 for the period 2021-2025 with funding 1.5 billion hryvnias, thanks to previous program which operated since 2016 by 2020. A video surveillance system was created in the city. Since the beginning of the program, more than 1,200 cameras have been installed in the city. Vinnytsia, with their digitalization process, started in 2013. When the city council launched the portal My Vinnytsia, where you can access the documents of the council online. Open data have been published since 2015. Through the personal cabinet, resident can make an appointment with the heads of departments and services of the city council or submit an electronic application. The city also has a round-clock dispatch center which accepts citizens' appeals on issues related to housing, healthcare, education, transport, and other. A communal service feedback system has been set up for the city council website and mobile application. Thanks to WinDim24 application, residents can pay for utilities. In order to ensure public safety, video cameras are installed on the streets of the city, the information from which is sent to servers of the City Council and to the Center of Ministry of Home Affairs. The network of street lights is expanding. All municipal transport is equipped with GPS systems, which allows you to track the road on the information board at stops or on the website. The city has also introduced a Vinnytsia municipal card with contactless payment technology and patient electronic card, which allows you to save the patient's medical history and examination, with which you can apply to any hospital in the city and get doctor's consultation. As part of the Kyiv Smart City Forum 2020, the city like Dnipro won nomination Best Smart Safe City with population more than 100,000 people. And the project to implement a non-cash fare system, including the help of bank cards when using all types of public transport. Mukachevo was recognized as the best digital city with a population less than 100,000 people within the framework of Kyiv Smart City Forum 2020. The city won 2 nominations, the best digital and mobile city. This was facilitated in particular by introducing the electronic document management system and a health system, geographic information system and the Mukachevo municipal map, as well as electronic ticket on public transport. In order to increase the level of public safety in the city, a video surveillance system on the street is being installed. In particular, up to 100 cameras have been installed. In 2020, in Mukachevo was created a smart city card via territorial community through which inhabitants is getting information and analytical support of TG activities, informing the public about local development programs, coverage of events and plans of TG, including planned activities, posted draft regulations for public discussion and adopted regulations.
In Odessa, in 2020, the system of non-cash fare payment in public transport via the transport mobile application with Bluetooth technology has been introduced. With the app available for download on Google Play and the Apple Store, you can track public transit routes. The appendix offers to use one of 2 tabs, either to pave the road from point A to point B, setting your location, or to pave a road with the possibility of determined by public transport. Zhytomyr became the first city in Ukraine to open e-ticket data in public transport. In April 2019, the Ministry on Infrastructure of Ukraine, together with the State Agency for E-Government and Zhytomyr City Council, presented the first visualization of public transport on the basis of open data, Open e-ticket of Zhytomyr, which demonstrates the potential of using open data on a ticket in decision-making to improve transport cities. The city is also implementing a video surveillance system with the function of face detection and number plate detection. The system visualization and detailing of pictures is taste, which gives an opportunity to see in more detail what is happening inside the car, to identify the driver and passenger. In Poltava, compared to other cities, only on June 12, 2020, deputies of the City Council approved the concept of the information ecosystem Poltava Smart City, and on September 29, 2020, the e-Poltava software package, which is a component of the Poltava Smart City ecosystem, was presented. A mobile application and a web version of Poltava Smart City are currently under development. The concept itself includes dispatching garbage trucks, measuring the level of pollution, implementation of a road quality monitoring system and meteorological system of sensors, a photo and video recording system, video analytics and telemedicine. However, the document does not contain the necessary information for the development of smart infrastructure, namely data on the percentage of people who use the internet, traffic to the website of the Poltava City Council, information on funding and deadlines for the concept. Since its approval, no meeting of the working group on implementation has taken place. There are no approved terms of reference, and so it is too early to talk about the progress of smart infrastructure development in this city.
In Kherson, also at the level of pilot project Smart Water Matters of a new model with modern running technologies has been installed. Thanks to equipment, data on the volume of water supply are accumulated at the specific time, which are sent for further processing to the special software of the management company. The smart city system is currently being implemented in the city. Together with IT specialists and active citizens, authority are working on developing technical tasks for unified city management system. In order to build a smart city in Kherson, deputies proposed to create a department of digital transformation within a local city council, which will take care only of building a smart infrastructure. The next step is to attract investors, including institutional investors such as European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, to conduct a fiber optic network that will allow you to use the Wi-Fi system in any part of the city. In the future, implement various smart systems in the field of public safety, transport and energy. System needs to be reconstructed. As for the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv started building smart infrastructure in 2015. Under the Safe Capital program, which began to be implemented in 2017, 450 million hryvnias was spent on the purchase of 7,000 video cameras, a video surveillance system and cloud storage. Smart camcorders make it possible to identify human faces and then identify them named status. The information is received and analyzed in the data processing center. With a probability of 99%, it becomes possible to determine the state numbers of cars regardless of weather condition, tracking the movement of the windshield. Cameras were also installed to determine the speed of traffic, which should allow you to automatically adjust the mode of operating of traffic lights and accordingly to unload the roads. But in practice, there is no progress. According to traffic index completed by Dutch company TomTom, in 2020, Kyiv took 7th place amongst 416 cities in the world. It should be noted that in 2020, Kyiv took a 98th place in the ranking of smart cities in the world, worsening in the position compared to 2019 by 6 positions. In addition to the traffic problems, despite attempts to streamline parking fees through mobile applications, parking problems have not diminished, and the creation of smart houses is not a mass phenomenon. If you don't know how to take necessary measures, then in 2021, Kyiv have decided to have a chance not to get into rating. Asserting the success of implementation of the smart cities in the world, it should be noted that today Ukraine lags far behind in the pace of innovations, as well as their quality and complexity. In fact, no city in Ukraine has come close to living in smart mode. A large number of Ukrainian cities aspire to become smart, but the speed and efficiency of smart infrastructure development projects primarily depends on economic potential of the city, budget support, as well as public support for the implementation of smart solutions. Achieving widespread of digitalization, the ability to preserve the results. Currently, the process of building smart infrastructure in Ukraine looks more like an advertising campaign to gain an image. One of the most common problems of the widespread development of the smart city faced by local authorities is difference between the initial idea and subsequent implementation. What looks good on paper not necessarily be variable. Many parameters of existing physical infrastructure, the level of human capital, the development of smart technology market, the state of institutional, legislative and financial support can affect and end result and efficiency of smart infrastructure.
Further development of smart infrastructure in the cities of Ukraine is a public challenge, as there are many barriers along the way: organizational, institutional, legal, financial, technological, infrastructural, and physiological. There present today causes increase in digital gaps among the population and hinders the process of innovative development of the whole country. The available practice, experience, and the results of scientific research determine the significant positives of smart infrastructure. The available practice, experience, and the results of scientific research determine the significant positives of smart infrastructure for the effective livelihood of cities, including the cities of Ukraine. A balanced approach is needed to address the public concerns caused by the contradictions of digital transformation, as well as to meet the interests of private investors, who are often the main stakeholders in these processes. It is important to have a clear understanding for the objectives and expected results, including an assessment of the effectiveness of its implementation. Making smart decisions on the development of the urban environment and infrastructure requires the involvement of all stakeholders: private businesses, free economic zones, research institutes, executive and legislative bodies, which will help address technical issues of urban governance. Such solutions must be scientifically sound to match results and costs, and flexible enough to take advantage of various alternative development opportunities in the future. Thank you for your attention.